Feminism and MGTOW have the same goals. I broke my hiatus on talking about MGTOW not long before I uploaded this video. Over the years, I've extensively described and documented the similarities between MGTOW and feminism. The trouble is that this information is scattered over many posts and videos. Therefore, I aim to rectify this with a single video that compares the core similarities between these two ideologies. I'm therefore going to draw 4 parallels between MGTOW and feminism, and although you could write an entire book going into great depth about this, hopefully this can serve as a useful summary. I do not suggest here that all MGTOW are as fanatical as the majority that dominate this ideology. However, it's become nigh on impossible to find a single MGTOW that doesn't enable the examples I provide, be it tacitly, unconsciously, or with total awareness. Before I begin in earnest, I'll provide a warning and an offer. Attempts by MGTOW to swarm this video with circular, strawman or personal comments will be removed at my discretion. So MGTOW, save yourself the time and don't bother. Furthermore, if you think downvote spamming will affect this video, my loyal and outstanding supporters have always managed to counter this in the past with upvotes. Finally, I'm more than happy to have a livestream discussion with any prominent MGTOW that disagrees with this video. But I won't count on that since MGTOW don't like open and honest discussion because they prefer pre-recorded strawman arguments and a wall of MGTOW mobbing to hide behind. Parallel 1. Patriarchy and gynocentrism. You'd be remiss if you haven't come across patriarchy theory already. This is the bedrock of feminism that adapts and reinvents itself in various ways, like kyriarchy, where patriarchy hurts men too.
Feminists do not want you to lose custody of your children. The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy. Feminists do not like commercials in which bumbling dads mess up the laundry and competent wives have to bustle in and fix it. Feminists do not want you to have to make alimony payments. Alimony is set up to combat the fact that women have been historically expected to prioritize domestic duties over professional goals, thus minimizing their earning potential as their traditional marriages end. The assumption that wives should make babies instead of money is part of patriarchy. Rape culture is part of patriarchy. Feminists do not want to be lonely. We do not hate nice guys. The idea of certain people are inherently more valuable than other people because of superficial physical attributes is part of patriarchy. I don't know if you're noticing a theme. Patriarchy.
Yeah, you keep going.
Anyways, I'm not done.
Patriarchy fundamentally amounts to the belief that structural prejudice exists in society to the benefit of all men. This kind of thinking stems from Marxist class theory, but instead of talking about class, it's about sex instead. As a result, men are always the oppressors and women are always the victims, in the same way as the rich land and business owners versus workers and poor under classical Marxism. At no point whatsoever can women therefore be wrong under patriarchy, because they're oppressed. Even if they are wrong on some level, this still isn't their fault because they acted in desperation. If you switch the word patriarchy for gynocentrism, you get the view of MGTOW in relation to societal oppression. Instead, we have an inversion where men can never be wrong, women can never be right, and personal responsibility is just as dirty a word as it is for feminism. To be fair, it wasn't MGTOW that started using the word gynocentrism, but they certainly helped popularise it. This started when a radical left-wing element subverted men's rights by substituting far-left terminology with new words that essentially mean the same thing. Nothing new there then. Gynocentrism became the perfect substitute for patriarchy. No need to reinvent the wheel, right? As such, gynocentrism is the theory that bias towards women creates institutional bias against men, enforced by men that put women on a pedestal, who are often referred to as white knights, a pejorative to describe males that practice chivalry. Parallel 2. Toxic masculinity and hypergamy. Toxic masculinity has become a well-known feminist pejorative for male behaviour in society. The theory is that masculinity is so damaging that it needs to be stamped out everywhere you find it by making men more like women. While feminists and MGTOW are opposite in their views about nature or nurture, this doesn't change the fact that feminists believe masculinity is always harmful, whether or not it's innate. Conversely, MGTOW are quick to say that female nature is innate, and that hypergamy is an inescapable part of that. Hypergamy being the theory that women always look to move up the social ladder by having children with males that are more successful than they are. However, though this is a clearly observable reproductive strategy that makes sense in nature, MGTOW will suggest that women are cold and calculating creatures that discard you as soon as you've outlived your usefulness, thus having no sincere capacity for love. In this sense, MGTOW take elements of truth about certain kinds of women, injecting it with ideological poison that means it applies to all of them, an obvious similarity to feminist generalizations about men. This began with a load of ideological nonsense called Briffault's Law, and I really do wonder whether it was introduced by far-left subverters. The fact that Robert Briffault himself was a Marxist, unhappy with the way this ideology was becoming much more sympathetic to women than men, certainly indicates that this is the case. When challenged, MGTOW tried to get around this very fatalistic view about female nature by suggesting there is no way of knowing which women won't take advantage of them. Therefore, since MGTOW don't believe there's any way of figuring this out through good judge of character, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, as they often state. For all intents and purposes, they think all women will turn on you at the first opportunity. Parallel 3. Hatred of tradition. Of all the similarities, this is probably the one that proves above all that whatever variation exists between feminism and MGTOW, they want the same things. With this in mind, the contempt for social conservative values and traditional Western values in MGTOW circles is identical to what we see from feminism. Although feminists criticizing the flaws in society will ultimately blame every problem on some extension of patriarchy, their real-world complaints actually amount to tradition. It really does bug me how they'll refer to this as traditionalism, since this is nothing but a buzzword to describe thousands and even millions of years of evolution that have become an extension of our customs and culture. Likewise, MGTOW utterly despise what's simplistically called traditionalism by those that use an ism to describe nature. Feminists complain that women are enslaved as mothers and homemakers. MGTOW complain that men are enslaved as providers for women and children. Feminists complain that tradition obligates and restricts women in society, like staying at home. MGTOW complain that tradition obligates and restricts the role of men, like fighting for their country. I could go on, but I'm sure you get the idea. All traditional values that stem from biological reality are oppressive, and all this needs to be replaced with a narcissistic attitude where only the individual matters. Obviously, society would cease to exist within one generation if everyone was as selfish as this. But then again, do we really expect a narcissist to care?
I wish to reference the quote on the gateway to hell in Dante's Divine Comedy. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Now, I'm not talking about comparisons between hell and Western civilization. My referencing of this quote has nothing to do with hell at all, and everything to do with letting go. I mean, just letting go. That's what men going their own way means to me. I just stopped caring at all. I don't care if I ever have another relationship again, and although I do take it as it comes, I don't care if I ever get laid again, at all, and I don't care if Western civilization collapses. I just don't care. And the best part about letting go completely to the lies we've been sold is that you're completely free. I've never felt more free in my life. I'm crystal clear right now. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. It's the only thing that feminists and traditionalists can't fight. That is men who stopped hoping in their system. They thrive off of your hope. Your talk of politics, they can smell the hope on that. They can smell the rancid belief in their system.
Parallel 4. Lying about statistics. We've seen this countless times with feminism, the pay gap being a good example. Feminists will continuously repeat the same statistical lies, effectively brainwashing the public into accepting that they must be true, especially if the source is authoritative. MGTOW used the same tactics to spread pessimism and nihilism. A major example is divorce. We're led to believe that this is as high as 50% and that most divorces are initiated by women. However, MGTOW conflate the divorce to marriage ratio with the total number of marriages that end in divorce, and automatically assume that every divorce initiated by a woman isn't legitimate. They also fail to take into account the number of people that divorce more than once and other strange anomalies in divorce statistics that appear to be deliberately designed to sabotage the stable impression of marriage in a culture dominated by leftists that have tirelessly worked to undermine it for decades. How interesting that MGTOW have become yet another way to do that. Feminism or MGTOW? Both are nihilistic ideologies that seek to tear down religious and traditional institutions that once held society together. No amount of repackaged sophistry can change that. This is Rocking Mystery, over and out.